All right, we have a breaking story, which will add to the bonfire here, from the Washington Examiner, Susan Ferricchio. Republicans on a House oversight panel say the Justice Department asked former Internal Revenue Service official Lois Lerner, you remember her, I plead the fifth, in 2010 to help them build criminal cases against nonprofit groups conducting political activity. Well, that certainly suggests why the Justice Department has done nothing to investigate Lois Lerner. Let's see what this says. House Oversight and Government Reform Committee Chairman Darrell Issa and Subcommittee Chairman Jim Jordan have requested an interview with Jack Smith, who heads the Justice Department's Public Integrity Unit. That's the unit, folks, within the Justice Department that handles some of the highest priority or high visibility cases for criminal matters. They don't necessarily go out to the U.S. Attorney. Sometimes they stay within the Justice Department. Now, Smith, who heads the Justice Department's Public Integrity Unit, he was requested for an interview after a subordinate revealed the department meetings with Lerner in a closed-door interview. The Justice Department convened a meeting with former IRS official Lois Lerner in October 2010 to discuss how the IRS could assist in the criminal enforcement of campaign finance laws against politically active nonprofits, Jordan and Issa said in a letter to Attorney General Eric Holder. This meeting was arranged at the direction of the Public Integrity Section Chief Jack Smith. And, of course, that guy reports to Holder. Let me repeat, that guy reports to Holder. The Republican-led House recently found Lerner, who headed the IRS Exempt Organizations Department, in contempt for refusing to testify before the oversight panel about her role in targeting conservative and Tea Party groups seeking this 501c4 tax-exempt status. Now, in October 2010, Lerner delivered an address at Duke University, which she told the audience, everyone is screaming at us to fix campaign finance before the 2012 election. Issa and Jordan said they believe the Justice Department contributed to this pressure on Lerner and other IRS officials to stop right-leaning organizations from achieving tax-exempt status following a Supreme Court ruling lifting restrictions on their activity. I told you, folks, this is going to work its way up to the Oval Office. What's your proof, Mark? Isn't it hilarious? I'm supposed to come forward with proof while there's no effective way of finding this out yet, because the very administration that's involved will not appoint a special prosecutor. Issa and Jordan said they believe the Justice Department contributed to this pressure on Lerner and other IRS officials. Democrats were particularly angered by the ruling, you remember Citizens United, because they believe it created a surge in social welfare groups that were engaged in blatant political activity, many of them conservative. That's right. See, ladies and gentlemen, they controlled this particular exemption, 501c4 groups, all kinds of left-wing kook groups, radical left groups, raising money, advocacy, getting people out to vote. And so what the Supreme Court said is, well, you know what? Businesses can do that too. Wait a minute. No, they can't. Just unions. By encouraging the IRS to be vigilant in possible campaign finance crime by these 501c4 groups, the Justice Department was certainly among the entities screaming at the IRS to do something in the wake of Citizens United before the 2010 election, wrote Jordan and Issa in their letter to Holder. And they said they learned of the Justice Department's involvement from Richard Pilger, the director of the Department of Justice Election Crimes Branch. This is a significant position. It's a senior position. Issa has subpoenaed Pilger because he would not fully answer the questions asked recently in a closed-door meeting with House Oversight investigators, although he did answer some questions and provided a lengthy statement. This could get interesting. The administration asserting executive privilege if they want to prolong this, get it into the courts, duke it out over separation of powers. And I don't put it past them, because this is a full cover-up. And the biggest scandal of the scandals, as I've said over and over and over again, is this one. I know nobody died here, but that's not my point. My point is the nature of this scandal, the institutional violations by the Internal Revenue Service. This thing is huge. In the letter to Holder, Issa and Jordan said they learned the Justice Department, listen to this, contacted Lerner again in 2013 after Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, Democrat, Rhode Island. This jerk's name pops up all over the place. Not just Carl Levin, this guy Whitehouse. suggested the Justice Department, quote, prosecute nonprofits for false statements made on the group's application forms about whether they intended to engage in political speech, unquote. So Sheldon Whitehouse, the radical nutjob liberal Democrat from Rhode Island, he was pushing for prosecutions even before there's investigations, and he wanted people to go to prison because he wanted to chill the effects and the impact of Tea Party and conservative groups before the presidential election. Even though they had the right to advocate, they had the right to register people to vote. According to this Justice Department attorney, Pilger, the directive came from Smith. That's Smith, his boss, head of the Public Integrity Unit, who reports to Holder. But, quote, he was unsure whether the instruction came from more senior department leaders, unquote. More senior department leaders. That could mean the Assistant Attorney General for the Criminal Division. That could mean the Associate Attorney General of the United States. That could mean the Deputy Attorney General of the United States. And, of course, it could mean the Attorney General of the United States. The top oversight panel Democrat said the testimony showed the Department of Justice was simply looking for illegal activity. That would be Elijah Cummings. Elijah Cummings is a buffoon. He just doesn't care what this government does to citizens as long as he's protecting this administration. He's a disgrace. That's not the role of a congressman or a senator, regardless of party, regardless of race, regardless of religion, regardless of all of it. And if he had contributed in a positive way, in an earnest way, to trying to figure out what took place, we may have gotten to the bottom of this. It's just like these 5 Democrats they appointed the Benghazi Committee. The whole point there is to block, is to run. And you've probably heard by now, the reason Pelosi appointed them is because Hillary Clinton was insisting, I need people on that committee to defend me. In other words, what she's saying is, I need people on that committee to undermine the investigation so I can run for president or do whatever else I want to do. That's why they were appointed. They're no more interested in getting to the bottom of it than Elijah Cummings is when it comes to the IRS. Hillary Clinton's world, according to Politico, was so worried about a Republican investigation of the Benghazi attacks, they sent a message to House Democrats. We need backup. I told you before when the Democrats were thinking about not appointing anybody that they would, and that they would for this very purpose, to protect her. Oh, and can I say Obama? Ooh, yes, to protect Obama, too. Ooh. And that I thought it would be better if they didn't appoint anybody, but they did.